Did you know? Vatican City is actually a country. You may be surprised to find out Vatican City is actually the smallest country in the world. For comparison, it is actually smaller than Central Park in New York City. You might wander beneath the magnificent columns of the recognizable St. Peter's Square, the Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's Basilica, or the Papal Palace in a half-mile walk from one side to the other, marveling in the architectural grandeur of one of humanity's most historically significant cities. However, what is most important historically may not be what is visible above ground, but rather what is hidden beneath it. 53 miles of shelving, more than 100 times the distance from one side of Vatican City to the other, is hidden in a bunker resembling a fortress and is protected by armed guards. On these shelves are 12 centuries worth of documents providing an astounding history of the Catholic Church and the world as we know it. Number 5. Missing books of the Bible. The Vatican took 14 books out of the Bible in 1684. The Vatican is pleased with the broader public not knowing, thus there's still no explanation as to why. When the Bible was first translated from Latin to English in 1611, there were initially 80 books. There are now only 66. The lost books are known as the Apocrypha, which in Greek translates to hidden. Some of the names of the lost books are Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Songs of the Three Holy Children, Bel and the Dragon, Maccabees, and the Prayer from Manassas. What's more strange is that before these 14 volumes were removed, the name Jesus was spelled differently. The spelling and pronunciation were altered by the Church. The name Jesus would be pronounced Yahushua if nothing had changed. Why were these enigmatic books removed? Many theories exist. Some claim the book's contents were simply removed since they didn't align with the Roman Catholic Church's narrative. Some claim that because they added length and complexity to the Bible, they were eventually deleted. But there is no concrete answer. Number 4. The Secret Archives. The Vatican Hidden Archives are the most secret location on Earth. What they're hiding down there, in what has been called a subterranean fortress, is the subject of innumerable rumors and conspiracies. However, we just don't know. The Vatican only permits entrance to the most esteemed researchers who are at least 75 years old because everything in the archives is so closely guarded. The reason for this is obviously to prevent the scholars from ever disclosing the information, even if they were inclined to do so. And while some claim there are strange objects like time machines and alien bodies in the archives, none of it is likely true. The truth is, there's a ton of correspondence about the Pope in the archives. They also have Catholic Church valuables, and since we're dealing with the Catholic Church, it goes without saying they don't want people admiring their assets. We are aware that there are some artifacts kept in the archives. There's a letter written by Mary, Queen of Scots prior to her execution in 1587. There are records pertaining to Martin Luther's excommunication. This is where the transcripts of the Knights Templar trial are kept. The archives include vital information on the Church's past 1200 years. However, a lot of this information is confidential. Therefore, the Church won't ever allow the general public to access it. Even though they provide the impression that everyone with an interest can access the archives, that is probably only a half-truth. The actual information will be hidden inaccessible to us in a still more secure repository. Number 3. The Dead Man's Trial. Pope Stephen VI went to great lengths to hold a trial for a man who was already dead in the year 897, in one of the Vatican's strangest actions, that we are aware of at least. His successor held a trial over the former pope's remains. Since Pope Formosus had been dead for a few months, he was unable to effectively defend his honor or himself. Nevertheless, he was exhumed, dressed and clothed, and forced to sit on the papal chair so that justice could be meted out. Even a deacon was chosen to speak for the body. The events that followed will appear insane. In front of a crowd, Pope Stephen VI attacked the previous pope and shouted insults at him as if he were yelling at a real, living person. At the conclusion of the bizarre trial, the deceased pope was found guilty of usurping the papacy. In other words, he absconded with the papal throne. Then all of Stephen VI's deeds while serving as the pope were declared invalid. Everything that Pope Formosius accomplished was reversed. His body was dumped into the river after having 3 of his fingers amputated. Pope Stephen VI was imprisoned shortly after it and then killed by being strangled. The main argument is that serving as Pope throughout the Middle Ages wasn't the finest occupation. Most of them passed away young, most of them were utter lunatics, and their beliefs were more political than religious. Romanus was Stephen VI's successor. He lived for 92 days before passing away. Theodore II, who succeeded him, reigned for hardly more than 2 weeks. Who knew there was such a high level of drama and violence in the papacy? Number 2. Vatican bank scandals. Infamous for its shady relationship since its establishment in 1942, the Vatican Bank has been a scandal-ridden institution, making money insiders' top 5 lists. The main financial institution of the Catholic Church was created during World War II to overcome the restrictions imposed on financial exchanges. The Vatican Bank quickly gained notoriety as the best offshore institution in the world and was associated with organized crime as mafia members sought to avoid the scrutiny of international institutions. The Vatican Bank was used to hide fake bonds and assets worth $9.1 billion. When he lost $30 million of their money in 1974, Archbishop Marcinkus, a former head of papal protection in the Vatican Bank, was reportedly to blame for Michele Sindona, a Sicilian banker, losing his whole business empire. The collapse of Banco Ambrosiano, the most well-known and largest privately owned banking group, however, marked only the beginning of the Vatican mafia scandals. Banco Ambrosiano lost $1.4 billion in unsecured loans to the Vatican Bank, which paid a staggering $244 million in settlements to Ambrosiano, but never acknowledged any wrongdoing. It seems the Vatican would rather deal with legal consequences than those of the mafia. In 2009, an Italian journalist published a book about the bank's dubious past, which included fake charity accounts, money laundering, and embezzlement. Obviously, bad publicity didn't stop proceedings, with 4 priests investigated for running bank accounts for the mafia in 2012, and a priest arrested in 2013 for using the bank to smuggle millions of euros for the mob. Before we get to the final item in today's list of Vatican secrets, please take a moment to like this video, hit subscribe, and leave us a comment about what hidden secret was the most exciting for you. Number 1. Smuggling Nazis to safety. It should come as no surprise that the Nazis found Europe to be an uncomfortable place to live after the Allies won the war in Germany. After learning this, they started using the Red Cross in the Vatican to look for asylum elsewhere. This event is certainly unexpected, but seems more likely to have been the result of a real error on the Red Cross's part than of extraordinarily kind behavior. Numerous official ICRC documents leaked to Harvard University research fellow Gerald Stein appear to shed insight on how and why mass murderers like Adolf Eichmann, Josef Mengele, and Klaus Barbie managed to escape capture in the midst of the post-war chaos. When issuing travel documents, or 10-100s as they were also known, the Red Cross drew primarily on those Vatican references and checks from the Allied troops. According to Steinacher, the documents show that the Red Cross distributed at least 125,000 of the 10-100s, and that 90% of the ex-Nazis who escaped Europe did so via Italy. For whatever reason, the Vatican Refugee Commission gave false names to Nazi fugitives, and they have constantly refrained from commenting or disclosing any pertinent records from their secret archives. Please take a moment to like this video, hit subscribe, and leave us a comment.